Right now, the flat gray slab of concrete in your driveway is basically fighting this violent microscopic war.
Oh, absolutely.
And depending on the true who poured it, it might actually be a ticking time bomb, just waiting for the next hard freeze to completely blow it apart from the inside out.
Yeah, we take that gray rectangle completely for granted. I mean, when it's done correctly, it just looks like a static piece of the landscape.
Right, just a boring rock.
Exactly. But the sheer amount of chemical and structural engineering required to make a flat surface survive the elements year after year, it's honestly staggering.
And that is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
So today we are looking at a highly detailed guide from a West Texas contractor. It's called 806 Concrete Patio and Driveway Lubbock. And it really acts as this masterclass on how to pour a durable driveway in a truly hostile climate.
It really does.
Our mission today is to uncover the surprising hidden science, like the chemistry, the physics, and the geology that's happening right beneath your tires.
And, even if you don't live in Texas, or maybe you aren't planning a home renovation anytime soon, understanding the invisible forces acting on that slab outside your house will completely change how you look at the built world.
Yeah.
It turns a boring suburban street into a masterclass in material science.
I love that. So let's start with a massive misconception that the guide corrects right on the first page. For most of my life, I've used the words cement and concrete interchangeably.
Oh, everyone does.
Right. I talk about a cement mixer or a cement sidewalk.
Yeah.
But they are absolutely not the same thing.
Not at all. It's probably the most common mix-up in the construction world. Cement is just an ingredient.
Okay.
It's the extremely fine gray powder that acts as the binder. Concrete is the hardened final product.
Got it.
So concrete is this highly calculated mixture of that cement powder, water, and aggressive aggregates like sand and crushed stone.
Okay, so the rocks and the sand are doing all the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And the cement is just the glue holding the structural pieces together.
That's the perfect way to look at it, yes. And understanding that difference leads us right to the first major point of failure.
Which happens before the concrete even hits the ground, right?
Exactly. The chemistry of the mix itself. The Portland Cement Association actually has very strict warnings about the water-to-cement ratio.
The ratio.
Yeah, this is the critical balance in that wet mixture.
Yeah.
And if the ratio is off, everything else fails down the line.
Well, the source highlights this terrifying scenario of what they call the lazy pour.
Oh, yeah, the lazy pour.
Right. You have these fly-by-night crews who will actually add unmeasured extra water to the mixing truck right before they pour.
Just dumping it in.
Yeah. They do it simply to make the concrete flow like soup, so it's, less physical work on their backs to spread it around the yard.
Which compromises the structural integrity at a molecular level.
Right, so I was trying to visualize this, and I thought about baking a cake. If you're mixing cake batter, and it's really thick and hard to stir, you might be tempted to just dump an extra cup of water into the bowl, just so it pours into the pan easier.
Sure.
But if you do that, the cake completely falls apart in the oven. It has no crumb structure at all.
Right.
But I do have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Concrete is incredibly tough stuff. We build skyscrapers out of it. Is it really that big of a deal if a contractor adds just a little extra water to a giant spinning truck of rocks?
Well, the chemistry actually backs up your cake analogy perfectly.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When cement mixes with water, it triggers a specific chemical reaction that allows the cement particles to bind the sand and stone together.
Okay.
When you flood the mixture with extra unmeasured water, you are physically pushing those cement particles further apart.
So the glue particles are literally too far away from each other to link arms.
Exactly. They can't form a tight network. So when the excess water eventually evaporates and leaves the slab, it leaves behind millions of microscopic voids.
Wow, so the glue is diluted.
Diluted and weak, you end up with a highly porous surface. The guide points out that this leads to a phenomenon called spalling.
Spalling. That is a great word.
It's a great word for a terrible thing. It looks awful.
What does it look like?
Well, because the extra water naturally rises to the top of the slab during the pour, the very top surface becomes the weakest, most diluted part of the driveway.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. So after just one harsh winter, that top layer gets dusty and literally starts flaking and popping off.
Yikes.
Yeah, you end up with a surface that looks like it has a severe skin disease.
That sounds like an incredibly expensive mistake just because someone didn't want to work up a sweat pushing the heavy mix around.
It really is.
So you have this weakened, porous surface from a lazy pour. And now we introduce that porous surface to a hostile physical environment.
The elements are incredibly unforgiving.
The source paints a pretty wild picture of the 806 climate, the Lubbock area.
Oh, yeah. West Texas is tough.
You have scorching hot July afternoons baking the ground, and that's followed by these sudden, brutal February freezes.
Right.
These rapid temperature swings cause massive thermal expansion and contraction.
Which brings in the physics of freezing. I mean, water is one of the very few substances on Earth that actually expands when it transitions from a liquid to a solid.
Right, and the guide gives a very specific number for this. It's 9%.
9%, exactly.
So when rain seeps into the porous surface of your driveway and the temperature plummets overnight, that trapped water expands by exactly 9%.
And that 9% expansion creates immense hydrostatic pressure. Freezing water exerts thousands of pounds of pressure per square inch.
Wow.
If you have a weak slab, that expansion literally blows the concrete apart from the inside out. I mean, the sheer force of freezing water will shatter solid steel pipes.
Right.
So a diluted slab of concrete doesn't stand a chance.
So how do you stop that? I mean, you obviously can't stop it from raining, and you can't stop winter.
No, you can't.
The guide dictates that to combat this hydrostatic pressure, a contractor has to use a mix with 4 to 6% air entrainment.
Yes, air entrainment.
But wait, we actually want to intentionally pump tiny air bubbles into the driveway.
We do.
Doesn't filling a solid slab with air make it weaker? Like if I'm building a load-bearing structure, I don't want it made out of Swiss cheese.
It sounds completely counterintuitive, I know. Intentionally introducing empty space into a structural material.
Yeah, it sounds crazy.
But this is where engineering brilliantly solves a physics problem. Those microscopic air bubbles aren't like large voids. They are billions of microscopic, evenly distributed pockets.
Okay.
They act as tiny pressure relief valves inside the concrete.
Pressure relief valves. How does that work when the water actually freezes?
Well, when the rainwater seeps into the concrete and eventually turns to ice, it needs somewhere to go when it expands by that 9% rate.
Right.
If the concrete is completely solid, the expanding ice has no room. So it pushes against the rigid concrete until the concrete snaps.
Okay, I see.
But if you have those intentionally placed air pockets, that 4 to 6% air entrainment, the freezing water simply pushes into those empty spaces.
Oh, it expands into the void rather than snapping the solid material holding the driveway together.
Exactly.
So it's accommodating the forces of nature rather than trying to rigidly fight them.
In a sheer test of strength, freezing water will always win. Always. The air entrainment gives the ice a designated expansion room so it doesn't wreck the house, so to speak.
That is brilliant. So we've trapped microscopic air bubbles inside to defeat the freezing rain attacking from above.
Right.
But that rigid armored slab is sitting on top of a completely unstable foundation. The ground itself is secretly sabotaging the slab from below.
Oh, subterranean sabotage is arguably the most common reason driveways ultimately fail.
The guide cites data from the Texas A&R AgriLife extension, highlighting the incredibly shifting soil of West Texas.
Yeah, it's a nightmare to build on.
They deal with sandy loam, stubborn caliche, and expansive clays. And these expansive clays are just wild.
They really are.
They swell massively when they get wet, and then they shrink down to almost nothing when they are bone dry.
Right.
It's like building your driveway on top of a giant, slow-moving sponge.
To understand why this is so destructive, you have to look at the molecular structure of clay.
Okay, break that down for me.
Clay particles are shaped like microscopic, flat plates stacked on top of each other.
Okay.
When water enters the soil, it wedges itself between these plates, pushing them apart. That causes the massive swelling.
Right.
Then, during a long summer drought, the water evaporates, the plates collapse back together, and the ground literally sinks.
That sounds impossible to deal with. How do you build a rigid, unbending object on top of a foundation that is constantly rising and falling?
The answer lies in the base preparation, and the guide is incredibly strict about this.
Yeah, they outline a very specific process.
Proper subgrade preparation is non-negotiable. You simply cannot pour concrete directly onto expansive clay.
They say you have to excavate the organic topsoil, lay down 2 to 4 inches of crushed stone, and mechanically compact it until it feels like bedrock.
And notice they specify crushed stone, not smooth river rock.
Oh, why is that important?
Crushed stone has sharp, angular edges. When you run a heavy compactor over them, they mechanically interlock with each other.
Oh, like puzzle pieces.
Exactly. They lock together to form a rigid platform, but they still have enough microscopic give to act as a shock absorber.
That makes a lot of sense.
If that subterranean clay movement isn't absorbed by a thick enough crushed gravel base, the pressure transfers directly into the concrete, and the slab snaps in half.
But even with a crushed stone shock absorber underneath, you still need reinforcements inside the concrete itself.
Absolutely.
And this brings up a massive debate in the guide regarding the internal skeleton of the driveway. Rebar versus wire mesh.
Oh, this is a big one.
Yeah, the 806 Lubbock guide strongly advocates for using number 3 steel rebar, tied in a grid on 24-inch centers.
Right.
And they explicitly say to avoid welded wire mesh.
This is a crucial distinction that really separates professional crews from the amateurs.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of cheaper quotes will include wire mesh because it's lightweight, it comes in giant rolls, and it's incredibly fast to just unroll across the dirt.
Right, but the guide points out the fatal flaw with wire mesh. It almost always gets pushed to the very bottom of the slab by the heavy boots of the workers walking around during the pour.
They just trample it right down.
I pictured it like making a poorly mixed soup, where all the heavy ingredients just sink to the bottom of the pot.
That's a great analogy.
If the mesh is sitting in the mud at the very bottom of the concrete, it provides absolutely zero structural support where the stress is actually happening.
Exactly. It's useless down there.
But this makes me wonder, if the ground moves that much and setting up a steel grid is such a hassle, why not just pour the concrete way thicker?
Just pour more concrete.
Yeah, pour it a full foot thick and just skip the metal entirely.
Well, that comes down to how concrete inherently handles physical stress. Concrete is fantastic at handling what engineers call compressive strength.
Compressive strength, so being squeezed.
Exactly. It is incredibly strong when it's being pushed down or squished. It can handle the downward weight of a heavy truck parked on top of it all day without batting an eye.
Because you are just pushing the rocks closer together.
Right. But concrete is terrible at tensile strength.
Tensile strength.
Yeah, tensile strength is the resistance to being pulled apart or bent. Think of a stack of wooden blocks.
Okay.
If you press down on the top of the stack, they are incredibly strong. But if you try to bend the stack, the blocks immediately pull apart from each other.
Ah, okay. So when that expansive clay underneath swells up and heaves the center of the driveway upward, it's bending the concrete slab.
Exactly. The top of the slab is being pushed together, but the bottom of the slab is being stretched and pulled apart.
And because concrete has poor tensile strength.
It cracks instantly under that stretching force, no matter how thick you pour it.
Oh, wow. So the steel rebar is providing the tensile strength.
Yes, it acts like a rubber band holding the wooden blocks tightly together when they try to bend. That makes perfect sense.
Rebar acts as the perfect skeleton, but only when it is properly elevated on little metal or plastic stands called chairs.
Right, so it doesn't sink like the mesh.
Exactly. These chairs hold the steel grid directly in the middle of the slab. When the ground decides to heave and bend, the steel grips the concrete and refuses to let it stretch apart.
Wow.
You combine the massive compressive strength of the concrete with the unbeatable tensile strength of the steel.
Okay, so the skeleton is built, the foundation is stable, and the chemistry is dialed in.
We're ready for the pour.
The mixing trucks arrive. Now we have to execute the actual pour. And the source has a fascinating revelation here about what happens next and how you ensure the driveway lasts for decades.
This is one of my favorite parts.
We constantly talk about waiting for concrete to dry, but concrete doesn't actually dry. No, it doesn't. We use the word dry colloquially, but scientifically, it's completely inaccurate.
Yeah.
If concrete simply dried out like a puddle on the sidewalk, it would just turn back into dust. Concrete actually cures through a complex active chemical reaction called hydration.
Hydration, so it actively needs the water to stay inside of it to get strong.
Precisely. Those cement particles are actively reacting with the water to form interlocking crystalline structures.
Wait, really? Crystals?
Yeah. At a microscopic level, as the cement hydrates, it sprouts tiny little crystalline tendrils, almost like microscopic fingers.
Wow.
And they grow out and interlock with the sand and gravel. It's actually an exothermic reaction, meaning it generates its own heat.
That is wild. But if those microscopic fingers need water to keep growing and interlocking, what happens if the water evaporates too quickly?
That's the danger.
The guide specifically mentions the danger of pouring under the blistering Lubbock sun.
Right. If the intense sun and wind evaporate the moisture out of the slab before the chemical reaction is finished, the microscopic fingers just stop growing.
Oh, so the chemical bonds are never completed.
Exactly. And you end up right back where we started with the lazy, pore-weak, dusty top layer that flakes off.
This is why the guide emphasizes that quality contractors will apply high-grade chemical curing compounds to the surface immediately after they finish the final sweep of the pour.
Yes, those curing compounds are essential.
It acts like a temporary seal. It traps the moisture inside the slab, forcing the concrete to cure slowly and strongly over time, rather than flash drying in the sun.
And the National Ready Mixed Concrete Association actually explicitly recommends at least 7 days of continuous curing.
7 days, which leads perfectly into the hard specs.
Yes, the numbers.
If someone is listening to this and getting ready to hire a contractor, they need to know what questions to ask. The guide gives us a clear baseline of non-negotiables to look for to ensure you aren't getting a weak slab.
Vetting a contractor means asking for the exact numbers. You want to see the science on the invoice.
Exactly. First, you need to ask for a minimum 3,500 to 4,000 psi mix. That guarantees that massive compressive strength we talked about.
Definitely.
Second, you have to talk about the thickness. The standard for a regular car is 4 inches thick.
Right.
But the guide makes a great point. If you ever plan to park a heavy RV, a boat, or dual-wheel truck on that driveway, you absolutely need to upgrade to 5 or 6 inches of thickness.
You really do. You have to provide enough physical material to handle that heavy compressive load. A 4-inch slab will eventually fatigue under a 10,000-pound RV.
Then there are the wait times. It is so tempting to drive on a new, beautiful driveway immediately.
Oh, everyone wants to use it on day one.
But you have to wait a full 7 days before you park a standard car on it.
Minimum.
And if you have those heavy trucks, you have to wait a full 28 days. The guide notes that while concrete reaches about 70% of its structural strength in week 1, those crystalline fingers need a full month to finish growing and fully cure.
Patience is literally a structural requirement here.
As for the cost, the guide sets a realistic expectation for this level of quality. It's $6 to $10 per square foot. Plus, you have to factor in right-of-way permits required by the city for anything touching the curb.
Always check your local permits.
But there is one structural specification in the guide that genuinely threw me for a loop.
Oh, which one?
It's the section on control joints.
Ah, yes. The street grooves cut into the driveway, usually in a grid pattern.
Right. So the American Concrete Institute dictates these grooves must be cut to exactly 1/4 the depth of the slab thickness.
Correct.
So for a 4-inch slab, you cut a 1-inch deep groove.
Yes.
But the guide explicitly says the purpose of these joints is to tell the concrete exactly where to crack. Are we really paying professional contractors thousands of dollars to purposefully break our brand new driveways?
In a word, yes.
Wow.
But it's controlled break. Remember the hydration chemical reaction we just talked about?
Yeah, the crystals.
As those crystalline fingers form and absorb the water, the total volume of the material inherently shrinks just a tiny bit.
Oh, I see.
Because you have a massive, heavy, rigid slab dragging against the friction of the crushed stone base below it, that slight shrinkage creates immense internal stretching stress.
And we know concrete has terrible tensile strength. It can't handle being stretched.
Exactly. Shrinkage cracks are 100% inevitable. You literally cannot stop physics.
So if you can't stop the slab from tearing itself apart as it shrinks, you give it a designated place to do it.
That's it. Those control joints are engineered fault lines.
Engineered fault lines.
Yeah, by cutting a weak point exactly 1/4 of the way through the slab,
Yeah.
you ensure that when the tension builds up and the concrete inevitably snaps, the crack happens deep down inside that straight, hidden groove.
Oh, so it snaps in a perfectly straight line at the bottom of the cut, rather than jagging an ugly, jagged spider web across the entire visible surface of the driveway.
Precisely. They aren't decorative squares. They are active stress management systems.
The guide is careful to clarify, though, that while hairline shrinkage cracks inside those joints are a normal sign of curing, if you ever see wide, gaping structural cracks opening up across the surface, you have a massive problem.
All right. That means the contractor failed to prepare the soil or neglected the steel reinforcement. That's a structural collapse, not a shrinkage crack.
It's the difference between a safely engineered release of tension and a total failure of the foundation.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the very end of the process, the final look, the finish.
We've done all this engineering, and now we want it to look good.
Right. But the source strongly warns against smooth, highly glossy finishes. They might look amazing in a glossy architectural magazine, But in reality, dust, rain, and winter ice turn a smooth finish into a literal ice rink.
It's so dangerous.
The guide also cautions against heavily stamped or colored concrete, unless you're ready for some serious long-term maintenance.
Oh, yeah, the fading is intense.
The intense UV index of the summer sun will fade the color fast, requiring aggressive annual chemical sealing.
Form always has to follow function, especially in an extreme climate. You just cannot sacrifice safety and durability for an aesthetic trend.
So the best choice, the standard they heavily recommend, is the bright white broom finish.
The classic.
Yeah, while the concrete is still slightly pliable, the contractor lightly drags a specialized broom across the surface to create thousands of microscopic ridges.
It provides vital tire traction and slip resistance for your boots when it rains.
It's a functional, rugged beauty.
It really is, and that really synthesizes everything we've unpacked today. A long-lasting driveway isn't just about dumping gray mud on the dirt and raking it smooth.
Definitely not.
True expertise, like what the 806 Concrete Guide demonstrates, is about respecting the highly specific environment you're building in.
You have to tailor the science to survive the local elements.
Exactly.
You need precise water-to-cement ratios so the chemistry doesn't dilute. You need microscopic air bubbles to act as pressure relief valves against the physics of freezing water. You need an interlocking crushed stone base and steel skeletons to fight the geology of swelling clay. And you need chemical curing compounds to trap moisture and allow those crystalline fingers to grow.
It is a brilliant, intricate dance of applied science.
It highlights why cutting corners on something as seemingly mundane as a driveway has such disastrous long-term consequences.
You aren't just pouring a rock. You are engineering a structure designed to wage a multi-decade war against chemistry, physics, and weather.
Absolutely. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a completely different thought to mull over.
Okay.
We've spent all this time talking about the intense engineering required to make a modern driveway survive for 30 or 40 years before it eventually cracks and fails.
Right.
But consider the Romans. Over 2,000 years ago, the Romans poured concrete piers and domes, like the Pantheon, that are still standing today, completely unreinforced by steel.
It's incredible.
Recent material science has actually discovered their secret. Roman concrete was mixed with volcanic ash and seawater. When cracks form in Roman concrete today, rainwater enters the cracks, dissolves highly reactive minerals from the volcanic ash, and chemically creates new crystals that fill the cracks back in.
That's amazing.
The concrete actively heals itself. It makes you wonder, with all our microscopic air entrainment and chemical curing compounds, why are we building driveways designed to eventually crack when thousands of years ago, humanity figured out how to build infrastructure that fixes itself?
That is a fascinating question to leave on.
Right. Well, until next time, keep looking beneath the surface.